Tuberculosis, often known as TB, is a chronic infection caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, for which humans are the main reservoir. Other mycobacteria, such as Mycobacterium africanum, can cause similar disease, and Mycobacterium bovis, which is a cause of bovine tuberculosis, can at times cause disease in humans, termed zoonotic disease. TB is almost exclusively spread through inhalation of airborne particles that contain Mycobacterium tuberculosis. These droplet nuclei, defined as particles less than 5 micrometers in diameter that contain the bacilli, can remain suspended in room air currents for several hours. Spread is more common in areas that are overcrowded, poorly ventilated, and enclosed spaces, especially in those with untreated pulmonary tuberculosis, and as such, there is increased risk for people living in poverty, institutions, or healthcare practitioners. Previously, Mycobacterium bovis would commonly cause infection through ingestion of milk or milk products. However, this has largely been eradicated due to milk pasteurization, as well as testing of cows with tuberculin skin tests. Though there are still some countries that are affected, such as those in Latin America, as well as some bovine populations in the UK. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is an obligate aerobic bacterium, meaning it requires oxygen to grow and replicate, and is rod-shaped, which is why these bacteria are termed bacilli. They are typically weakly gram-positive, as the dye is not able to penetrate and stain effectively, partly due to mycolic acid in the cell wall. This is also part of why they are acid-fast positive, also sometimes known as Zeal-Nielsen staining, meaning they resist decolorization when acid is applied, which is demonstrated by retention of a red colour. As mentioned, it has a human reservoir. Around 1 in 4 of the world's population is infected with TB, though only a small percentage have active disease at any given time. Most new cases in recent years have been in Southeast Asia, Africa, and the Western Pacific. Tuberculosis tends to occur in 3 stages. Initially, a primary infection, which in around 95% of cases is asymptomatic. This involves inhalation of particles that are small enough to traverse the upper respiratory defences and become deposited in the lungs, typically in the subpleural air spaces of the middle and lower lobes. A single droplet containing a few organisms can be enough, and from here, the bacilli are taken up by alveolar macrophages. In these first few weeks, infected macrophages may migrate to nearby lymph nodes from where the bacteria can spread through the blood to any part of the body, though this is less likely in those with partial immunity due to vaccination or prior infection. This is often a subclinical bacillemia. Not all bacteria will be killed by the macrophages, in which case they can replicate intracellularly and destroy the macrophage, and once released, then generate a local inflammatory response. Usually within the first 3 weeks, cell-mediated immunity will have suppressed replication of the bacteria before symptoms develop, primarily through a Th1 response and macrophages forming a granuloma that contains the bacteria, featuring caseating necrosis in the centre. These initial granulomas, typically in subpleural spaces, are called agon foci, which, if involving a hilar lymph node, is termed agon complex, and if both are calcified, are called rancor complexes, which can be seen on X-ray. In some cases, the infection can be cleared, though in around 90%, the bacteria can remain alive and dormant, and this is termed a latent infection. This is not a contagious stage. The bacilli can survive in this material for several years, in a delicate balance between the host's immune resistance and microbial virulence. And if this shifts in favour of the bacteria, immunosuppression through HIV is a common example, can then become active. Other factors include chronic kidney disease requiring dialysis, diabetes, gastrectomy, and immunosuppressive medications such as chemotherapy, corticosteroids, post-transplant medications particularly, as well as TNF-alpha inhibitors, as TNF-alpha is involved in granuloma formation. For those with latent infections, there is roughly a 10% lifetime risk of developing active disease, which is contagious. Reactivation is most common in the apices of the lungs, thought to be due to an abundant oxygen availability. However, any organ initially affected may become a site of reactivation. In the minority of cases who are symptomatic with primary TB infection, the signs and symptoms can often be non-specific, including low-grade fever, fatigue, without necessarily a cough, but can be present. Active infection symptoms can include constitutional symptoms such as weight loss, fatigue, anorexia, often developing gradually over weeks, with night sweats and lymphadenopathy possible. Low-grade fever is also common, as is cough, typically becoming more productive as the infection progresses, and is usually a yellow or green sputum. But if the granulomas damage vessels, there may be hemoptysis, meaning coughing up of blood. Around 1 in 5 cases of active TB only have extrapulmonary manifestations, meaning affecting an organ besides the lungs. Miliary TB is the term to describe a severe case featuring dissemination of the bacilli through the blood and body, which is more common in those under 4 years old, the elderly, and the immunocompromised. Pleural TB can occur when mycobacteria access the pleural space, which can lead to development of pleural effusion, and this can also happen during the primary infection, which is a difference to the others. Meningeal TB can occur without other organ involvement, and is the form of TB with the highest morbidity and mortality. Features include fever, headache, nausea and vomiting, reduced conscious level, and potentially evidence of meningeal irritation, such as Koenig and Brudinsky sign positivity. Meningeal foci are termed rich foci. TB can affect the peritoneum, with features including abdominal pain and tenderness, ranging from mild to an acute abdomen, and may also feature ascites. Genitourinary TB can involve the urinary or genital tracts, causing sterile pyuria, meaning white blood cells in the urine, or symptoms such as dysuria, hematuria, and can cause infertility. Pericardial TB can lead to heart failure, and more specific signs include pleuritic and positional chest pain, fever, and dyspnea, and can also lead to cardiac tamponade. Linked to the cardiovascular system, it may infect vessel walls and lead to formation of an aneurysm or rupture. There can be lymphadenitis, commonly affecting the lymph nodes in the cervical region, termed scrofula. Cutaneous TB may manifest as direct extension of foci into the skin, which may form sinuses, and lupus vulgaris, where there is dissemination to the skin from an extracutaneous focus. TB can affect the bones and joints, often with weight-bearing joints being affected, but can affect small joints too, and Pott's disease is when the vertebrae are involved. Others include the liver, which may lead to hepatitis, and the adrenal glands, which may lead to Addison's disease. First-line investigations include a chest X-ray, with the classic finding in active infection being a multinodular infiltrate in the region of the clavicle. There may be middle or lower lobe infiltrates in primary infections, and may be calcified hilar nodes and foci, termed rancor complexes, as mentioned earlier. Sputum investigation typically involves an acid-fast stain looking for positive staining bacilli, meaning a red colour, and often this is then followed by nucleic acid amplification tests, or culture for definitive diagnosis. Expert and line probe assay are two forms of nucleic acid amplification testing, both detecting resistance to rifampicin and the latter to isoniazid as well, with newer versions of Expert also detecting second-line treatment resistance. Culture is also useful to identify drug susceptibility, though molecular methods are now replacing this, as culture can take up to several weeks. The samples may be taken via bronchoalveolar lavage if the patient is unable to expectorate the sputum. Those who do test positive for TB should go on to be tested for HIV as well. Other testing includes the tuberculin skin testing, also known as the Mantoux method, which involves injecting purified protein derivative intradermally, not subcutaneously, and then assessing the size of the induration, meaning the raised, firm swelling and not the erythema, which develops over the following 48 to 72 hours. This is a measure of T-cell response to TB antigens and is an example of delayed or type 4 hypersensitivity. It does not distinguish between active and latent infection and is also positive in those who have had the BCG vaccine. 15mm or greater diameter is taken as positive in those with normal immunity and no additional risk factors, with smaller diameters of 5 and 10mm used depending on the risk factors. Interferon gamma release assay is a blood test looking at interferon gamma release from lymphocytes exposed in vitro to TB-specific antigens. Similarly to tuberculin skin testing, it does not distinguish latent and active infection, but does not become positive in those with previous BCG vaccination generally. The mainstay of treatment is antibiotics, which render active infections non-contagious within several weeks. First-line agents can be remembered with the mnemonic RIPE, with rifampicin, sometimes called rifampin. Its side effects include orange-coloured urine and rarely cholestatic jaundice. Rifamycin class drugs often have interactions with many other medications, as they are cytochrome Py450 inducers, including antiretrovirals, which needs to be considered given the common co-occurrence with HIV. Next is isoniazid, but note around 10% of cases are resistant to this in the United States. Side effects include rash and, more rarely, peripheral neuropathy, anemia, and agranulocytosis. This and rifamycin class drugs are used in pregnancy. Pyrazinamide is the P, with the main side effects being GI upset, hyperuricemia, and hepatitis. E is for ethambutol, the main adverse effect being optic neuritis. Other options include some fluoroquinolones, such as moxifloxacin, capreomycin, which is often classed with aminoglycosides like kanamycin and streptomycin, though streptomycin is not as commonly used as much now. Newer agents include bedaquiline, delaminid, pritomanid, and sutezolid, mostly used in multi-drug resistant cases defined as TB resistant to rifampicin and isoniazid. Multiple regimens exist. All 4 of the RIPE medications were traditionally used for 2 months in an intensive phase, then generally continuing rifampicin and isoniazid for a further 4 to 7 months in a continuation phase. More recently, a 4-month regimen using rifapentine and moxifloxacin has been shown to be non-inferior. Considering the contagious nature of active infection, measures also need to be taken to reduce the risk of spread, which in hospital settings can be achieved through the use of negative pressure rooms, air changes, and PPE, like a respirator for healthcare professionals. It is worth noting, however, that there is a large risk of transmission present in those with undiagnosed TB not on treatment. Most patients are treated, however, as outpatients and undergo DOT, directly observed therapy, to improve compliance. Prognosis is excellent in drug susceptibility test-directed therapy, with cure often achieved. However, there can be morbidity with the residual tissue damage even after cure, for example in the lungs. In immunosuppressed individuals, TB can progress and become fatal in as little as 2 months. though in the example of HIV, with antiretroviral therapy and optimum antibiotics, can also be cured.